Okay. It's unclear to me if the parents are home, but we gotta record this video. Hello, internet friends. Buenas noches. I hope that you are well wherever in the world that you are. So I did this last year, or I guess 2 years ago at this point, where I asked for recommendations to inspire my work in progress story. And I am coming to you again because I continue to need your help. I know that I said in my previous video that I am a mood reader and I cannot be bothered with TBRs. But I also really liked getting like book recommendations from other people, because if I was left to my own devices, I would read the same thing over and over again. Asking for recommendations really exposed me to books that I may not have picked up otherwise. And it led to me finding literally my favorite book from last year. So I have an overall positive experience from asking for recommendations. Okay, we got a couple different work in progress story ideas that I'm kind of juggling between. You might think that's a little ridiculous. I would say that it is, but I would also say that none of them are baked enough for me to fully commit to one. Hence why we're like being inspired, we're asking for recommendations. So I got a couple of prompts that I would like for you to respond to, and they are based off of or are meant to inspire stories that I'm hoping to write in the near future. As a general request for these recommendations, it's no pressure, but if possible, I would love some sort of BIPOC representation, some LGBT plus representation. It's not a huge deal if you're like, man, I really want her to read this story. It sounds like the perfect for this research prompt, but it is unfortunately by a white author. Like that's okay. As long as we get like a nice healthy mix, that feels good to me. So for this first work in progress, we call this the Kyra story. Fun fact, ever since I was 12 years old, I've been writing a version of a fantasy series, and it's changed over the years. If anything, it's just been like multiple different fantasy stories, but in every single one of them, I have had the protagonist be named Kyra. And it was just something that like came into my brain when I was 12 years old. I think I was watching a lot of America's Next Top Model at the time, and so I think Tyra Banks was in my brain, so like Tyra, Myra, Kyra, that sounds nice. So ever since I was 12 years old, there's always been a Kyra in my story. And one day, someone else is gonna go to market with a fantasy story with a main character named Kyra, and I'm gonna lose it. So for the Kyra story, think nature. That's all I got for you, okay? You can interpret that prompt however. No, I'll interpret the prompt for you. Don't worry. I'm thinking like nature magic. I'm also thinking like nonfiction books about like conservation. I'm reading this book right now called Braiding Sweetgrass, which if you're friends with Resica the Midnight Reader, she has recommended this endlessly. It's a nonfiction book that is a indigenous botanist who talks about indigenous wisdom of how to be in relation with the earth. And that book really seems to align with kind of like the educational like knowledge that I want to have as I go about writing the story. So things like that. Or I would love some like fantasy books that involve like nature magic in some way. I would say I don't really love elemental magic because I'm not trying to make Avatar The Last Airbender. Kyra is basically Layla from Fantasy High. She's gone through a lot of iterations, and I don't think that 12-year-old me could have ever expected her to evolve into Flower Child, but she has. So like think in that vein. Other kind of like inspirations to guide you. I'm so sorry if I'm being too controlling here. I know that this is supposed to be me asking you for advice, but I also was inspired by the Naturalist in Three Dark Crowns. The Naturalists are a type of magic user, and their like powers are focused on having relationships with animals and having relationships with growing plants and things like that. So that is also like a piece of inspiration that I've been taking. I'm so sorry if that was too controlling. Like you can interpret the prompt however you like, but also those are just ideas. Those are just guidelines. Those are just things to help narrow the search, because nature is a big category. Work in progress number 2 is a project that I am calling Project AI Love You. It's about a woman who might be falling in love with a robot. Think of it as like Ex Machina, but like in like a romantic dramedy sort of situation. For this, I would love some recommendations around like the ethics surrounding AI. I'm currently on hold at the library for this book called Unmasking AI, which is like more specifically about like racism in AI. Although your recommendations don't have to have that intersection, that could be nice. But I'm also just like looking for general problems with like the development of AI. I would just like to have a basis about the ethical questions and concerns that we as a society should be asking ourselves about as we move forward into the future. You know what I mean? I would also like fiction books that involve a love story. I would like examples of good and bad relationships, but not abusive relationships. And finally, this is more of like a help me find this book. So my friend was telling me, I was telling her about the story, and she told me, oh, that really reminds me of this Ray Bradbury short story. And the short story was like, in this like future dystopia, like women are not a thing in this society, and it's just like a bunch of men, and they are serviced by like female sex robots. And he, like, after becoming kind of just unsatisfied with this bot that is just there to serve him, he goes out to try to find like an actual woman, and he stumbles upon a like society of women. That's really all I remember, but the way she described that book to me honestly felt like exactly the kind of research I wanted. So if you know what this book is, I'm telling you I'm telling you I googled it. I'm telling you I wrote Ray Bradbury story about man sex robot. Like I tried. So I'm asking you, where is this book? This is the third recommendation. That's the only one I want. I'm kidding. But also in a similar vein, if there are any like modern, like classic authors who have actually written something similar to this, I would like those recommendations as well, because I would hate to write something like a half-baked version of Ray Bradbury's idea and then have some reviewer absolutely rip me apart. I feel like this is also a part of research, knowing like what incredibly successful authors before you have created, so that way you don't like half-bakedly plagiarize their ideas. You homage them. The third work in progress, we just call this the Sea Witch story. The Sea Witch story requires books about island civilizations. This can be fiction or non-fiction. Basically, I'm just looking for anything that could really help inspire the world building, because let me tell you, playing Civilization 6 only gets you so far. Can I tell you something? I'm addicted to Civilization 6. Like, I need to delete the app from my phone, because if I keep that app on my phone, I'm absolutely never gonna do anything with my life. I'm gonna throw away my job, my retirement fund, my hopes, my dreams, and I'm just gonna sit in my bed and I'm gonna play Sim 6 for the rest of my life. And I'm not even gonna be good at it. Like, can I tell you, I have to play on the settler setting because I'm that bad at the game. By the way, if anyone has tips on like how to play Sim 6 better, like, please drop those below. And finally, this is the last recommendation. This is not attached to any work in progress story at all. This is a genre that I really like, but for some reason I haven't read a lot of. I would like some dark fairy tale retellings. I've never talked about this on the channel, but you've been around here long enough, like, you know the brand, we love a murderous woman. Like, if you've been around here long enough, you should not be surprised by that information. A dark fairy tale retelling is my shit. Like, Cinderella's stepsisters cutting off their toes is my shit. And I haven't read a lot in this genre. I don't know why. Like, I don't get it. So if you have any recommendations in that vein, please drop those below, you know, because like, we all have to have hobbies. The previous prompts were for research. This is for fun. Okay, and that's it. That's everything I want to say. That's everything I want to talk about. Thank you for watching. As always, I really appreciate you being here. And I guess this is how I outro now. Thank you. Good night. We should find a different one.